The morning sun rose over New Seoul like any other day. The human colony world had been home to 50,000 people for nearly a decade now. They shared their streets with dozens of alien species, all members of the Galactic Council. Most days, everyone got along well enough. Park Ji-woo checked his work schedule on his tablet while making breakfast. His daughter, Minso, sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs and humming a song she learned at school. She was 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up a room. "Dad, can I go to the market today?" Minso asked. "My friend Hana said there's a vendor selling those sweet cakes I like." Ji-woo smiled at his daughter. Life as a single father was not easy, but moments like this made everything worthwhile. Stay in the main square, don't wander off, and be home before lunch. "I promise." Minso grabbed her small bag and kissed her father's cheek before running out the door. The central market of New Seoul was always busy on weekend mornings. Humans mixed with Keltharan merchants, their insect-like bodies clicking as they arranged their goods. Draxan workers loaded cargo with their powerful reptilian arms. Floating Kigsari discussed philosophy in their singing voices. It was the dream of the Galactic Council, all species together in peace. Minso found Hana near the fountain. The two girls laughed and played, chasing each other between the market stalls. The vendors smiled at them. Children were children, no matter what species they belonged to. Then Enforcer Commander Zthari arrived. The Vraxian officer stood nearly 8 feet tall. Her scales were deep purple, polished to a shine. She wore the black and silver uniform of a council enforcer, the elite security force that kept order across 1,000 worlds. In her 3-fingered hand, she carried her ceremonial staff, a weapon as much as a symbol of authority. Zthari walked through the market like she owned it. Other species moved out of her way quickly. Enforcers had a reputation. They did not tolerate disrespect. They did not forgive mistakes. Minso was laughing, running backward while Hana chased her. She did not see the tall Vraxian officer. She bumped into Zthari's leg, bounced off, and fell on her bottom. "Oh, I'm sorry." Minso looked up, her eyes wide. "I didn't see you. I'm really sorry." "Minso, I'm really sorry." "Minso, I'm sorry." "Minso." The market went quiet. People stopped talking. Vendors froze in place. Zthari looked down at the small human child. Her eyes were cold and yellow, like a snake's eyes. "Pathetic creature. You dare touch a council enforcer?" "One. I didn't mean to," Minso said softly. She tried to stand up. "It was an accident. Your kind knows nothing of respect." Zthari raised her ceremonial staff. "You must learn." The staff came down hard. It struck Minso on the side of her head with a sickening crack. The little girl collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Hana screamed. The market erupted in chaos. Humans rushed forward. A woman named Kim Yuna reached Minso first, gathering the unconscious child in her arms. Blood ran from Minso's ear and nose. "What have you done?" Yuna shouted at Zthari. "She's just a child." "She touched me without permission," Zthari said calmly. She wiped a small spot of blood from her staff with a cloth. "Consider this a lesson for your entire species. Teach your offspring proper behavior. Come, someone call medical, now." A human man was already on his communicator, screaming for emergency services. Zthari walked away without looking back. Her security detail formed up around her. By the time the medical transport arrived, the Vraxian officer was gone. The doctors at New Seoul Medical Center worked frantically. Minso's skull was fractured. There was bleeding in her brain. They put her into an induced coma to reduce the swelling. The head physician, Dr. Chen, stood outside the intensive care unit with tears in her eyes when Ji-woo arrived. "Your daughter is in critical condition," Dr. Chen said quietly. "The next 48 hours will tell us if she'll survive." "I'm so sorry, Ji-woo." Ji-woo could not speak. He walked into the room where his little girl lay surrounded by machines. Tubes and wires connected to her small body. Monitors beeped steadily. Her face was so pale, so still. He sat beside her bed and took her small hand in his. It was warm. At least, she was alive. For now. I'm here, Minso, he whispered. Dad's here. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay. The hours passed. Friends came to visit. They brought food Jiwoo could not eat. They offered words that could not comfort him. The whole human community of New Seoul heard what happened. Everyone knew that Enforcer Commander Zthari had struck a child in the market. Everyone saw it, or knew someone who saw it. By evening, a representative from the Galactic Council arrived at the hospital. His name was Ambassador Court, a floating jellyfish-like being who spoke through a translation device. Mr. Park, the Council wishes to express regret for this unfortunate incident, Court said in his mechanical voice. Jiwoo looked up from his daughter's bedside. His eyes were red from crying, but his voice was steady. Regret? Your enforcer nearly killed my daughter. What are you going to do about it? The matter is complicated, Court explained. Enforcer Commander Zthari holds diplomatic immunity as a council security officer. We cannot simply arrest her based on a local dispute. Local dispute? Jiwoo stood up slowly. She hit an 8-year-old child hard enough to fracture her skull. That's not a dispute. That's a crime. From a certain perspective, perhaps, Court said. However, the child did make physical contact with the enforcer without permission. Technically, one could argue, provocation. She's 8 years old. Jiwoo's voice rose. She bumped into someone by accident. Tonight, Mr. Park, I understand you are emotional. However, the Council must maintain order and respect for authority. Perhaps this incident will encourage human parents to better supervise their children in public spaces. Jiwoo stared at the ambassador. He could not believe what he was hearing. Get out. Mr. Park, please be reasonable. Get out of this hospital before I do something we'll both regret. Ambassador Court left quickly. He filed a formal complaint about the humans' threatening behavior. That night, Jiwoo sat alone with his daughter. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Minseo's chest rose and fell with each breath the ventilator pushed into her lungs. She looked so small in the hospital bed, so fragile. Jiwoo held her hand and felt something change inside him. The grief was still there. The fear was still there. But underneath, something else grew. Something cold and hard and ancient. His daughter's life hung in the balance. The creature who did this walked free, protected by rules and laws and diplomatic papers. The council called it an unfortunate incident. They suggested he should have watched his child more carefully. Jiwoo looked at Minseo's pale face and made a silent promise. He did not know how, yet, but there would be justice. One way or another, there would be consequences. Outside the hospital window, the lights of New Seoul sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Enforcer Commander Zthari slept peacefully, confident in her immunity. She did not know that she had just made the worst mistake of her life. She had hurt a Deathworlders child. 3 days passed. Minso remained in a coma. The machines kept her alive while her brain slowly healed. Dr. Chen checked on her every few hours. The swelling was going down. But the child had not opened her eyes. Jiwoo never left the hospital. Friends brought him changes of clothes. His supervisor at the construction company told him to take all the time he needed. The human community rallied around him, but their support came with growing anger. On the second day, 200 humans gathered outside the council administration building. They held signs demanding justice. They chanted Minseo's name. They called for Zthari to be arrested and tried for her crime. The council's response was swift and cold. Security forces surrounded the protesters. Ambassador Court appeared on every screen in the colony with a message. The Galactic Council values peaceful coexistence, his translated voice announced. However, we will not tolerate disorder. Enforcer Commander Zthari acted within her authority to maintain respect for council officials. This matter is closed. Further protests will result in martial law. We expect all species to maintain appropriate behavior. The protests stopped. The signs came down, but the anger did not go away. It went underground, where it grew hotter and darker. Zthari made things worse. On the third day, she appeared on the Colonial News Network for an interview. The Vraxian officer sat in a comfortable chair, her purple scales gleaming under the studio lights. The incident with the human child was regrettable, but necessary, she explained to the reporter. Lesser species must understand hierarchy. They must learn respect through discipline. The child made physical contact with me without permission. I responded appropriately to reinforce proper behavior. The child is in a coma, the reporter said carefully. Do you have any message for her family? Zthari's yellow eyes showed no emotion. I hope they will teach their offspring better in the future. When one lives among superior species, one must observe appropriate protocols. Perhaps this experience will benefit their entire community. Jiwoo watched the interview from Minso's hospital room. His hands shook with rage. The nurses worried about him, but they understood. They were human too. They felt the same anger. That evening, visitors came to the hospital. They were not the usual friends and neighbors. These were older people, men and women in their 60s and 70s. They walked with a different kind of confidence. Their eyes held something that made the younger humans step aside respectfully. The eldest was a man named Lee Sang-ho. He was 74 years old, thin and gray-haired. He wore simple clothes and walked with a slight limp. But when he entered a room, people paid attention. Sang-ho found Jiwoo sitting beside Minso's bed. Park Jiwoo. Jiwoo looked up. Yes, my name is Lee Sang-ho. May I sit? Jiwoo gestured to the empty chair. Sang-ho sat down slowly, looking at the small girl in the bed. He studied her face for a long moment before speaking. I had a granddaughter once, Sang-ho said quietly. She would be about this age now. If things had been different. I understand what you're feeling. Do you? Jiwoo's voice was bitter. Everyone keeps telling me they understand. But nothing changes. That monster walks free. I know. The council protects her. They call it diplomatic immunity. Sang-ho's voice was calm, almost gentle. But there are older laws than the council's laws. Older forms of justice. Jiwoo turned to look at the old man. What do you mean? Before the Galactic Council came to Earth, before we joined their civilization, humans had their own ways of handling things. When someone hurt a child, when the authorities would not act, communities took care of their own problems. The council would never allow that. The council does not need to allow it. Sang-ho leaned forward. Do you know what I did before first contact, Jiwoo? Before we met the aliens and joined the galaxy? No. I was a soldier. Special forces. I did things that needed to be done. Things that kept people safe. When the council came and Earth joined their civilization, most of us retired. We became farmers, teachers, shopkeepers. We tried to be peaceful. Sang-ho's eyes hardened. But we never forgot how to do the other things. The necessary things. Jiwoo's heart began to beat faster. What are you saying? I'm saying that there are 47 people in this colony who served in Earth's military before first contact. We have experience the council species do not understand. We know tactics they have never seen. And we all watched that interview with Zthari. We all saw what she did to your daughter. You want to kill her. I want to give you a choice. Sang-ho's voice remained calm. You can wait for the council's justice, which will never come, or you can accept help from people who remember Earth's old ways. People who believe in blood debt and direct action. Jiwoo looked at his daughter. The machines beeped. The ventilator hissed. Minso's small chest rose and fell. If I say yes, what happens? We make a plan. We gather intelligence. We wait for the right moment. And then we show Enforcer Commander Zthari that diplomatic immunity means nothing when you hurt a Deathworlder's child. The Council will retaliate. Against who? The whole human community? They cannot arrest everyone. They cannot prove who did what. We are not random criminals. Jiwoo. We are trained professionals who spent decades learning how to operate in hostile territory. Sang-ho stood up. Think about it. If you want our help, come to the community center tomorrow evening. Ask for the Veterans Club. We will be waiting. The old man left as quietly as he arrived. Jiwoo sat alone with his daughter. He thought about Sang-ho's offer. It went against everything he believed in. He was a peaceful man. He worked construction. He raised his daughter alone. He never hurt anyone in his life. But Minso might die. Even if she lived, she would carry scars forever. And the one who did this faced no consequences. The council called it an unfortunate incident. They told him to supervise his child better. They protected the monster who nearly killed his little girl. What kind of father would he be if he did nothing? The next morning, Minso's monitors showed improvement. Her brain activity increased. The doctors reduced her sedation carefully. By evening, they were cautiously optimistic. Dr. Chen found Jiwoo in the waiting room. She's going to live, Jiwoo. She should wake up in the next day or two. There may be some memory issues, possibly some coordination problems. We won't know the full extent until she's awake. But your daughter is going to survive. Jiwoo cried for the first time since the incident. He cried with relief and joy and grief all mixed together. His daughter would live, Minso would live, but she would carry the scars, physical and mental, because a cruel alien struck her for the crime of being a child who made a simple mistake. That evening, Jiwoo walked to the community center. He found the Veterans Club meeting in a back room. Sang-ho was there, along with 46 other older humans. Some were men, some were women. All had the same look in their eyes. I want to help, Jiwoo said simply. Sang-ho nodded. Then we begin. Welcome to the old Earth, Park Jiwoo. Welcome to the way things were before the council told us to be civilized. The Deathworlders were waking up. And someone was going to pay. The Veterans Club met every evening in the community center's basement. To anyone who asked, they played cards and talked about old times. That was partly true. But they also planned an operation that would have made their old commanding officers proud. Lee Sang-ho divided the work into teams. Some people watched Zthari's movements. They noted when she left her quarters, where she went, who accompanied her. Others researched council security protocols. A few began quiet inventory of tools and equipment that might be useful. Jiwoo learned quickly. The old soldiers taught him how to watch without being noticed, how to remember details, how to think tactically instead of emotionally. It gave him something to do besides worry about Minso. His daughter woke up on the 5th day. Jiwoo was there when her eyes opened. She looked confused at first, then scared by all the machines. He took her hand and smiled, fighting back tears. Dad? Her voice was weak and rough. I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe. You're in the hospital, but you're going to be okay. What happened? My head hurts. Dr. Chen explained that Minso had no memory of the incident. The blow to her head erased the last few hours before the attack. She remembered going to the market with Hana, but nothing after that. In a way, it was a mercy. She would not remember Zthari's cold eyes, or the moment the staff came down, but she would carry the scars. A long line ran above her ear where the surgeons had to operate. Her balance was affected. Simple tasks made her tired. The cheerful, energetic child was quieter now, more cautious. Something had been taken from her that could never be returned. Jiwoo sat with his daughter during the day and met with the veterans at night. He told himself he was doing this for Minso. For all the children of New Seoul. So no parent would ever feel what he felt. 2 weeks into the surveillance, something unexpected happened. A Keltheron approached Sang-ho outside the community center. The insect-like alien's translator device clicked as it spoke. "You are watching the Vraxian enforcer. I want to help." Sang-ho studied the alien carefully. Why? Because 3 years ago, on the colony world of Telkar, Enforcer Commander Zthari killed my child. She said he was stealing. He was 6 years old and hungry. She executed him in the street and claimed diplomatic immunity. The Keltharan's antennae trembled. The council protected her then too. They always protect her. Sang-ho brought the alien to the next meeting. His name was Kix Thar. The veterans listened to his story. Then, another alien appeared 2 days later. This one was Draxon, a reptilian species known for their strength and temper. "I am Voss," the Draxon rumbled. 5 years ago, Zthari commanded a raid on a merchant vessel I worked on. She accused us of smuggling. We were not. But she killed my entire crew anyway. 17 people died. The council said she was maintaining order. They gave her a commendation. The list grew. A Kichari whose sister disappeared after questioning by Zthari. A Helvian whose business was destroyed by false accusations. Everywhere the Vraxian enforcer went, she left victims. But the council always protected her. Always claimed she was just doing her job. Always hid behind diplomatic immunity and official procedures. "She's not just cruel," Sang-ho told the group. "She's a serial criminal. The council knows it. They don't care. She's useful to them. So they let her do whatever she wants." The intelligence gathering became more sophisticated. Kixthar had contacts in the council administration who leaked Zthari's schedule. Voss knew security protocols from his merchant days. The human veterans brought tactical planning and operational security. They learned that Zthari lived in the council residential tower, the most secure building in New Seoul. She had 4 bodyguards who accompanied her everywhere. She varied her routes and timing, standard security practice. But she had patterns. Everyone had patterns, if you watched long enough. She liked to visit an exclusive restaurant every 10th day. She attended security briefings at council headquarters every morning at 8. She went to the training facility 3 times a week to practice combat skills. She was arrogant, but she was not stupid. She knew she had enemies. What she did not know was that Deathworlders were patient. They could plan. They could wait. And they never forgot. The psychological warfare started small. Messages appeared on Zthari's personal terminal. Simple words in ancient human languages. Latin, Sanskrit, Old Korean. The translations were always the same. "We are coming. Justice is coming. You cannot hide." Someone left a small toy at her door. A human child's toy, covered in red paint that looked like blood. Zthari increased her security detail. She filed complaints. The council investigated, but found nothing. More messages came. Details of her crimes, written in languages from across the galaxy. Names of the people she killed. Dates. Places. Someone knew everything. Someone was watching. Zthari stopped sleeping well. She began looking over her shoulder. The confident, arrogant enforcer became nervous. "Twitchy," she shouted at her guards. She saw threats everywhere. Meanwhile, Jiwoo trained. The old soldiers taught him things they hoped he would never need to know. Close combat, weapons handling, how to move quietly, how to strike without warning, how to do terrible things for necessary reasons. "You don't have to be part of the final action," Sang-ho told him one evening. "You've already helped more than enough. Your job is to be there for your daughter." "I need to be there," Jiwoo said quietly. "She hurt my child. I need to look her in the eyes when justice comes." 3 weeks after Minso woke up, the opportunity presented itself. The council scheduled a security conference at the government complex. Every enforcer in the region would attend, including Zthari. The conference would last 3 days. On the second evening, there would be a formal dinner. That's when we move, Sang-ho announced to the group. Security will be focused on the conference center. Half the enforcers will be drunk at the dinner. We'll have a window of approximately 2 hours. 1. The plan was complex. Multiple teams with different jobs, distractions in various parts of the city, careful timing, escape routes. Everything rehearsed until every person could do their job with eyes closed. Ji-woo visited Minso the night before the operation. She was home now, recovering slowly. A neighbor stayed with her. When Ji-woo had to work, she smiled when he came in, though the smile was not as bright as before. "Dad, can we watch a movie together?" "Of course, sweetheart." He sat beside her on the couch and put his arm around her. She leaned against him, warm and alive and safe. They watched a comedy about talking animals. Minso laughed at the silly parts. Ji-woo memorized the sound. Whatever happened tomorrow, he needed to remember why he was doing this. Not for revenge, not for hate. For this. For the sound of his daughter's laughter. For the chance that she might fully heal. For every parent who should never have to feel what he felt. After Minso fell asleep, Ji-woo carried her to bed. He tucked her in and kissed her forehead. "I love you more than anything in this universe. Everything I do for you. Remember that." He left her sleeping peacefully and went to meet the others. The hunt was about to end. The reckoning was beginning. The second evening of the security conference arrived. Council officials and enforcers gathered in the government complex for the formal dinner. Expensive food from a dozen worlds. Music from the finest performers. Security was tight around the conference center, but the rest of New Seoul received less attention than usual. Half the enforcement staff was at the dinner. Exactly as Sang-ho predicted, at 1900 hours, the operation began. Team 1 cut power to 3 city blocks, making it look like an accidental grid failure. Team 2 created a disturbance at the spaceport, sending security forces rushing to investigate a fake emergency. Team 3 jammed specific communications frequencies that the council security used. In the chaos and confusion, no one noticed Team 4 moving through the shadows. Zthari left the dinner early. The Vraxian enforcer had barely eaten. She drank nothing. The mysterious messages and threats had made her paranoid. She wanted to return to her secure quarters in the residential tower. Her security detail surrounded her as she left through a side entrance. 4 armed guards. All professionals. The route to her vehicle took them through a parking structure. Overhead lights flickered from the power issues affecting the city. The first guard dropped without a sound. A dart in his neck. Fast-acting sedative. Down in 3 seconds. The second guard turned toward the sound and took a dart in the chest. The third managed to draw his weapon before Voss appeared from the shadows and struck him with carefully measured force. The Draxan was incredibly strong, but he pulled his punch. Unconscious. Not dead. These guards were just doing their jobs. The fourth guard got his weapon up and fired. The plasma bolt went wide. Kixthar moved with insect speed and precision, disarming him with a complex joint lock. Another dart. Another body dropping. Zthari found herself alone. She pulled her ceremonial staff and activated its energy field. The weapon hummed with power. "Show yourselves, cowards." Sang-ho stepped into the light. He was unarmed, hands at his sides. Behind him, other figures emerged. Humans, mostly. But also Kixthar, Voss, and half a dozen other aliens. They formed a semicircle around the Vraxian enforcer. Enforcer Commander Zthari. Sang-ho said calmly. "You are accused of multiple crimes across multiple worlds. Murder, assault, abuse of power. Do you deny these charges?" Enforcer. "Are fallen to the Rossics. I have diplomatic immunity." Zthari's voice was sharp with fear, disguised as anger. I am a council enforcer. You have no authority over me. We operate under a different authority. Sangho gestured, and Jiwoo stepped forward. This is Park Jiwoo. You attacked his daughter. You fractured her skull. You put her in a coma. She was 8 years old. Zthari's yellow eyes narrowed. The child who bumped into me? She needed discipline. All your kind need discipline. Her name is Minso. Jiwoo said quietly. She's a real person. Not a thing. Not an object for you to hit. A little girl who liked sweet cakes and singing songs. Pathetic sentiment from a pathetic species. Zthar moved forward. My son's name was Tiklar. You killed him on Telkar. For the crime of being hungry. He was 6 years old. Voss spoke next, his voice deep and rumbling. My crew. 17 people. You killed them all and called it enforcement. They had families. Children. Mates who waited for them to come home. One by one, the others spoke. Each had a story. Each had lost someone to Zthari's cruelty. Each had suffered while the council looked away and claimed diplomatic immunity. Zthari laughed. It was a harsh, scraping sound. So what? The council protects me. They always have. You think you can change that? Kill me, and they will hunt you down. They will make examples of your entire species. Maybe. Sangho admitted. But you'll still be dead. And that's something. Zthari attacked. The Vraxian was fast and trained. Her energy staff crackled as she swung it at Sangho's head. The old man moved like water, flowing around the strike. His hand snapped out, hitting a nerve cluster in her arm. Zthari's staff fell from suddenly numb fingers. She grabbed for a backup weapon with her other hand. Voss caught her wrist, his strength overwhelming hers. Zthar swept her legs. The mighty enforcer crashed to the ground. They did not hurt her, did not beat her, did not torture her. They were not cruel. They simply held her in place while Sangho spoke. We represent the old laws, he said. The laws that existed before councils and governments. Natural law. When you harm children, there are consequences. When you abuse power, justice eventually finds you. The council forgot these truths. We remember them. You're savages. Zthari struggled against the hands holding her. Primitive Deathworlders who don't understand civilization. We understand it fine, Jiwoo said, kneeling beside her. We gave it a chance. We tried living by the council's rules. But your rules protect monsters. Your civilization lets people like you hurt children and walk away. So we're falling back on older rules. Simpler rules. What rules? You hurt my daughter. You nearly killed her. Under natural law, there's only one response to that. Jiwoo's eyes were cold and hard. You pay the price. Zthari saw death in those eyes and finally understood. These were Deathworlders. They came from planets where only the strong survived, where predators hunted and prey evolved or died, where nature was cruel and harsh and unforgiving. The council thought it had civilized these species, taught them softer ways, but civilization was just a coat they wore. Underneath, they were still products of their deadly worlds. And she had forgotten that. The council will destroy you all, she whispered. Perhaps, Sangho said. But you won't see it. For crimes against children across a dozen worlds, for abuse of power, for murder and cruelty, we find you guilty. The sentence is death. No trial? No lawyers? No appeals? You had your trial. It was in that marketplace, when you struck a child and felt no guilt. It was in your interview, when you said you were right to do it. It was in every world where you killed and hurt and destroyed, knowing the council would protect you. Sangho drew a simple blade from his coat. We are the appeal. We are what happens when civilization fails to deliver justice. Voss and Zthar held Zthari still. She fought and screamed and threatened. She begged. She offered money, information, anything. But Deathworlders are relentless once committed to a path. Sangho made it quick, merciful. More mercy than Zthari ever showed anyone. One strike, precise and clean. The Vraxian enforcer died quickly, with less pain than she had caused in any single one of her crimes. The teams moved with practiced efficiency. They cleaned the scene, retrieved the sedative darts, woke the security guards with no memory of what happened. By the time anyone discovered Zthari's body, the teams were gone like ghosts. But they left something behind. A message, printed in 47 languages on waterproof paper pinned to Zthari's uniform. This was justice. Enforcer Commander Zthari was tried and convicted for crimes against children and innocents across multiple worlds. The Galactic Council failed to act. Diplomatic immunity does not exist for those who harm children. This is natural law. We are nature's children. Let all who abuse power under the protection of authority understand. We remember. We watch. And we will come for you. The message was signed simply, the Deathworlders. By dawn, Zthari's body was discovered in the government plaza, displayed for all to see. The discovery of Zthari's body sent shockwaves through New Seoul and beyond. Council security locked down the government district. Investigators swarmed the scene. The message pinned to the dead enforcer's uniform was photographed, analyzed, and sent to every council world within hours. Ambassador Court called emergency meetings. Other council officials arrived on fast ships. They demanded answers. They demanded arrests. They threatened martial law and occupation. The human community of New Seoul responded with unified silence. When investigators questioned people, everyone had the same answer. I don't know anything about it. Thousands of humans, all with the same story. They were home with family. They were at work. They saw nothing, heard nothing, knew nothing. The council could not arrest everyone. They had no evidence linking specific individuals to the crime. The security footage was mysteriously corrupted. The communications logs showed nothing useful. Whoever did this knew how to operate without leaving traces. Then other voices joined the chorus. The Keltharan government submitted a formal protest to the Galactic Council. Their statement detailed the death of Tiklar 3 years ago on Telkar. They questioned why Enforcer Commander Zthari was never investigated. Why diplomatic immunity protected an officer who killed a child. The Draxan government followed. They presented evidence of 17 crew members killed during Zthari's raid on a merchant vessel. The raid found no contraband, no smuggling, no crimes, but 17 people died anyway, and Zthari received a commendation. More species came forward. The Kiksari, the Helvians, even some council species added their voices. Zthari's victims numbered in the hundreds. For years, the council protected her because she was useful, because she maintained order, because questioning one enforcer might lead to questioning the entire system. The galactic news networks picked up the story. Reporters investigated Zthari's career. They found patterns of abuse, excessive force, and crimes covered up by diplomatic immunity. Public opinion shifted. Many species condemned the execution, but quietly, privately, they understood why it happened. The council faced a crisis. If they admitted Zthari was a criminal, they admitted the system failed. If they defended her, they looked complicit in her crimes. Either way, they lost. Earth's diplomatic representatives arrived on New Seoul 5 days after the execution. They met with council officials behind closed doors. The conversations were tense, but productive. Ambassador Sarah Kim addressed the council directly. Humanity does not condone vigilante justice. However, we cannot ignore the failures of the system that led to this situation. When a child is attacked and the authorities refuse to act, when diplomatic immunity becomes a shield for criminals, people will seek other solutions. This is not a human trait. This is a universal truth. Are you defending murder? Ambassador Court demanded. I'm explaining cause and effect, Kim replied calmly. You protect an officer who hurts children. You create anger. You refuse justice. You create desperation. You ignore victims across multiple species. You create enemies. What happened to Zthari was wrong, but what she did was worse. And your protection of her was worst of all. The private negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the council made a public announcement. Diplomatic immunity for council officials would be reformed. It would no longer protect officers accused of violent crimes against civilians, especially minors. Independent review boards would investigate complaints. Victims would have recourse. It was not everything. It was not perfect. But it was change. Real change. The kind that only happens when the powerful realize their actions have consequences. On New Seoul, life slowly returned to normal. Ji-woo went back to work. He spent his evenings with Minso, helping her with physical therapy and homework. Her balance improved. Her energy returned. The scars would always be there, but she was healing. One evening, they watched the news together. The report discussed the new council policies on diplomatic immunity. Minso looked confused. Dad, is this about me? About what happened in the market? Ji-woo chose his words carefully. Yes, sweetheart. After you got hurt, a lot of people realized the rules weren't fair. They worked to change things. The bad alien lady who hurt me, is she going to hurt other kids? No, Minso. She won't hurt anyone ever again. His daughter smiled. It was a real smile, bright and genuine. Ji-woo hugged his daughter close. Me neither, sweetheart. Me neither. Me neither. The Veterans Club continued meeting at the community center. They played cards and talked about old times. Sometimes, new people joined. Sometimes, old friends shared stories. They never discussed what happened that night in the parking structure. It was over. Done. Justice had been served in the old way. The hard way. The Deathworlder way. Lee Sang-ho visited Earth's Memorial Garden one quiet morning. The garden honored those who fought and died in humanity's wars before first contact. He stood before a wall of names, people he served with, people he lost. We did it, he said quietly to the names. We protected the children. We showed them that some lines cannot be crossed without consequences. I hope you understand. I hope we did right. The names gave no answer. But Sang-ho felt peace anyway. He had spent decades trying to be civilized, trying to be peaceful. But when civilization failed, when peace could not protect the innocent, he fell back on the skills he learned in war. He did not enjoy it. He took no pleasure in killing. But he did not regret it either. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth the cost. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Humans became known for more than just their Deathworld origins. They became known for their protective instincts, for their willingness to act when others would not, for their long memories and longer patience. Other species began treating human communities with new respect. Not fear, exactly, but understanding. If you lived near humans, you protected their children. You did not abuse power in their presence. You remembered that these people came from a world that tried to kill them every day, and they survived by being tougher than anything nature could throw at them. Council enforcers changed their behavior. Complaints against them dropped dramatically. Excessive force incidents became rare. No one wanted to be the next Zthari. No one wanted to test whether the Deathworlders would act again. New Seoul thrived. The human population grew. Businesses expanded. More species came to live and work alongside humans. The community that stood together in silence became stronger for it. They proved that unity had power, that ordinary people could make a difference when they chose to act. In the marketplace where it all began, Minso played with her friends. She ran and laughed and acted like a normal child. The vendors smiled at her. Other species greeted her kindly. Everyone remembered what happened there. Everyone understood the cost of hurting the innocent. Jiwoo watched his daughter from a cafe table, drinking coffee and reading the news. An article discussed humanity's growing influence in galactic politics. Another talked about the decline in enforcer abuse cases. A third speculated about other Deathworlder species and their customs. He smiled. The galaxy was learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. You cannot rule through fear and immunity forever. Eventually, someone stands up. Someone says, enough. Someone remembers that justice exists, whether governments recognize it or not. The Deathworlders had spoken. They dropped Zthari's head at the galactic feet, not as a threat, but as a message. Protect the children. Respect the innocent. Or face the consequences. The galaxy heard. The galaxy understood. And the galaxy changed. Minso ran up to Jiwoo's table, her cheeks flushed from playing. Dad, can I have some money for sweet cakes? Jiwoo handed her a few credits. Be careful. Stay where I can see you. I will. I promise. She hugged him and ran back to her friends. Jiwoo watched her go. This little girl who survived, who healed, who laughed again. He thought about the night in the parking structure. The choices he made. The line he crossed. He would do it again. In a heartbeat. Without hesitation. Because some things are more important than laws or rules, or diplomatic immunity, family, children, justice. These are the things Deathworlders fight for. These are the things worth any cost. The galaxy learned that lesson, and they would not forget it.